Welcome to another episode of Prevailing Through Pain, where we have extraordinary women that tell their stories. Today, we have the amazing, phenomenal Natalie Clark, educator and the founder of I Am Strong. Welcome, Natalie. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we're just going to let everybody know some of the great things that you're doing, some of the great things that along the way that got you to where you are today. So with that being said, can you tell us just a little bit about your humble beginnings?
Yes, but first of all, thank you so much for having me today. It's an honor to be here.
Pleasure.
Just a little bit about my humble beginnings. As far as my childhood.
Yes.
Okay, so I am one of 7 children with my father. I'm the 6th child. And with my mother, I am the 3rd child. My dad was married before my mom. There were 3 kids, and then married with my mom. There was 4 of us.
Okay.
As a young child, I was pretty quiet, but always very observant. And I'm still very observant to this day. So being very mindful of just the things around me. So just a little bit about my parents, my mom and dad always instilled in us to just understand the importance of family.
Okay.
There were many times when some days it was challenging, but nonetheless, we knew that we could depend on each other. My mom was a teen mom, and my dad was a high school dropout. And growing up, I never thought of any of that. It never even really resonated with me until I was really actually an adult. And I thought back on that, which is quite impressive because I didn't grow up feeling like I was left out or a statistic or anything like that because of just how I was raised.
So this is interesting. I'm not sure what our age difference is. We don't have to go there. But my mom was a teen mom. I didn't know that was the case with you. I'm one of 7.
Wow.
My mom had two sets of children. So with that being said, when your mom remarried, so were you in the house with your mom and your stepfather?
I grew up with my mom and my dad.
Your mom.
So my dad was married before my mom.
Oh, I got you. I'm sorry.
He was 10 years older than my mom. So my dad was married.
To my stepdad.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. So my dad was married before my mother.
Okay.
And then those 3 kids and then the 4 of us.
So did you grow up? With us, because my mom always made sure, even though she remarried, that we were within blocks apart. So my siblings and I, from the second marriage, that we'd always be around each other. So, and so we never even, when people would say, so that's your half sister or your half brother, we didn't understand what they were talking about. We were sisters and brothers. So how about you?
They lived a little over an hour from us. And so we saw them, but we didn't see them all the time. But my parents didn't really use that half, but we knew, how family is. Family has a way of doing different things. And my dad's family was actually closer to the relationship he had with my mother than with the other children's mother.
Okay.
And so even to this day, my dad's family will reach out to me versus my siblings who are older than I am because we were just closer with them.
Okay. So you're getting ready to say you didn't realize the difference until you had gotten older, and I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. No, I didn't. I really didn't realize the difference because one of the things that really I saw a lot in my mother particularly was motivation and drive.
Okay.
So regardless of the fact that she was a teen mom, she overcame so many different things. To this day, my mom has a bachelor's degree. My mom has a master's degree. My mom's owned restaurants. She has her own business today. So she's a true example of your past doesn't define who you are.
I love it. So is that where you got your entrepreneurship from?
Yes, and the motivation, because my mom is her father's only child. And so my grandfather always worked for himself. He never really worked for anybody else because of the treatment during segregation and all of that. And so um, he he said he knew his worth and how he wanted to be treated. So if it meant doing his own thing, that's what he did. And so I think for my grandfather, having that mindset and instilling that into my mother, she instilled that into us. And so that's where it comes from.
Okay. So let me ask you something. We were talking one time and you made the comment that coming up, you were told that you were pretty to be dark. To be a dark person, you were pretty. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So, yes. So growing up, I can think of a lot of different things. One example that I always like to share is when I was 6 years old. And when I was 6 years old, my grandfather, as I said, had his own business. And so he had met this family, and this family had moved to the town where we lived, and they had a daughter. And the daughter was the same age as I was. And she was half Asian and she was half white. And, you know, when you're a child is not taught necessarily, a child naturally doesn't just look at the color. A child knows that they're playing with someone and they're having fun. And so I had met her, and then it turns out when school started, we were at the same school. And so I had already gone to the school for a year for kindergarten, and she was, of course, the new girl at the school. And I remember so profoundly, one day we were outside playing on the playground, and the other girls didn't want to play with me. And they didn't want to play with me particularly because I was the only one that was Black. And I remember this little girl saying, if you can't play with Natalie, you can't play with me.
Wow.
And still to this day, you know, I've thought about that because that was something already bold and being confident for that child to speak up, because she could have easily just went and played with all the other kids that were wanting to play with her because she was new. But instead, she knew me for who I was, and she liked me as a friend and stood up for me. So that meant a lot.
That's awesome.
But then also sharing about just about the color. People don't realize the power of words. Some people say words don't matter, but the power of words, they do matter.
They do.
And even though you may go on 20, 30 years later, you'll never forget what someone said to you. And so I would often hear, you know, that I was very pretty for a dark-skinned girl. But when you think that someone is pretty, you just stop there. You don't have to add that to it. You know, I was also told that we didn't know Black people were smart until we met you. In my high school town that I grew up in, I was the only Black undergraduate. And so many years, I would also get it from the Black people. I would get that she's a white girl. Just because I was smart, how I carried myself, the values, the expectations. Because regardless if I was dark-skinned, you lived in a better house than me, whatever, one thing about it, I was always confident in who I was.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in East Texas. I grew up in Athens.
Okay.
That's where I grew up. So just always confident. And to me, people are always going to have an opinion. And that's okay. They can have their opinion, but you can't let their opinion control who you are and what you believe about yourself. So dark skin or not, whatever, I would say I'm beautiful just because God made me who he wanted me to be.
But the funny thing is, dark skin is in that.
Yes, it is. It is in.
You know, it's funny because we share a lot of similarities, you know, except for me, it sounded like you had confidence. For me, I lacked confidence for years. And so I had to work on my self-confidence to feel good with the skin that I'm in. So I love that you started out young with, I don't care what you think. This is who God made me and who I am. And so I love it. That says why you're the strong woman that you are today. So walk me through like high school, your loves, your first loves, and all those things.
High school was amazing. I was very involved, as I said, growing up with my parents. And I shared how my dad was a high school dropout and my mom was a teen mom. But one thing about it is that My mother wanted us to, if it's something that she saw we were working towards, she was there to support us. And my dad was too, but as sports and education, my dad really wasn't because his parents weren't really there for him and he was raised by his grandparents. And so they were older. So not having people present for him at school functions and different things that he did in school really explained my father's life. However, when I was in high school, I knew, like most Black kids, your parents don't have a college fund set aside for you.
Right.
And I'm not even say Black kids, or just a lot of people. People are just trying to live. And so, but my mother knew about scholarships. And so I was very smart in school, worked really hard. And my goal was to graduate to be one of the top 10 students in my high school class. And so starting with my freshman year, I would go down every year and I would want to see where my class ranking is at. Because if you have a goal, you got to monitor your goal along the way, because how do you know what else you need to do? And so I remember at the end of my freshman year, I was number 20. So that was good, but that wasn't where I wanted to be. And so I kept working and I kept working. And at the beginning of my senior year, I was number 5.
Wow.
And so
Kudos.
thank you. I worked really hard. But one of the things that we did is my mother would take me, back then, it wasn't the internet. It wasn't getting on your phone. Right. My mother would take me to the public library, and we would go to the public library and we would look in different articles and books and things like that. And we would look in the newspaper and we would look to see what organizations were offering scholarships. And so I wrote a lot of different essays to all of these different organizations because my mother was like, you've worked hard. There are people out there that will give you money. We just got to tap into it and find it. And I thank her still to this day because I earned $20,000 to be able to go to college.
Wow.
Just by scholarship, just by my mother spearheading that and, encouraging me to do it.
That's amazing. I had no idea that all that stuff. When I was in high school, where you said the top 5, was it? I was just trying not to be the lower 5 so I could graduate. I mean, I didn't know. I did, and what you said, monitoring, looking to see where you were. No, I think that's phenomenal. And I don't know. I've never heard anyone else even say that. So that's
something that the young people, I always encourage and tell them, if it matters to you, go look. Go see where you are. Even if your goal is not to be in the top 20, whatever it is, just to kind of know where you are. If it's at the bottom, you don't want to stay at the bottom. If it's to work, just to graduate, you need to monitor along the way.
Okay, so now you have this scholarship and you're in college. What part of the world where did you go to college?
I went to Baylor.
Okay.
Is where I went to college at. So right before I went to college, one of the things that I did, I was in a pageant. And so it was Miss Black Henderson County. And I entered the pageant. There was a scholarship attached with the pageant. Also, it's always good, as I said, I was confident just in who I was and to be able to represent my county. And so I was Miss 1996 Black Henderson County.
Okay.
Yeah. So I earned scholarship for that as well. So I went on to college. I did marry my high school sweetheart and have been married for 24 years. So I was able to do that. Of course, college is trying, but we did make it. I have 3 children.
Okay.
So fast forward, I do have the 3 children. I got married at 20 years old. I was a mom at 21.
Okay.
Whatever challenges or obstacles that may come along, I've always had the mindset that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So even to this day, when people ask me, how do you manage so many things? God and intrinsically motivated.
Tell me about, if you don't mind, one of the happiest memories you recall. And then I want to hear one of the darkest times that you can recall.
Probably one of the happiest memories that I can recall, other than having my children and seeing an extension of yourself, Probably was graduating college because there's 7 of us. And out of the 7 children, I'm the only one with a college degree.
Okay.
So that's probably one of the happiest days of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And just to say that I was able to do that being married, having a child, having to relocate to another university to finish out my last year, commuting an hour to make it to college every day, having a car that was broke down and no way to get to college but finding rides, and having a supervisor reach out and say, you're just a motivated person that I didn't even know that allowed me to use a car. And just to not let anything stop me.
You said your supervisor told you to use their car?
Yes. And so let me keep it, my family, for 3 months. And just the fact that all of that, and I was still able to graduate with my bachelor's degree at 22 years old.
Wow. You know, that's phenomenal, because it's so easy for people to come up with excuses why they can't. And so to say that at 22, been a mother, been away, and school itself is stressful. And then the commute, a car that was barely making it. But I'm a firm believer that, you know, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it sounds like you made that way. You found that will to do what you need to do to get that degree. And so kudos to you. All right, so I'm going to flip the script. What's the darkest memory that comes to your mind? And
so the darkest memory that comes to my mind is losing my father. And I'm going to keep it together. But my parents divorced when I was an adult. So I was 20 years old when my parents divorced.
okay.
And my mother went on with her life, and my dad went on with his life. And my dad ended up remarrying. And my dad ended up suffering so just to kind of backtrack a little bit, when I was a little girl, my dad was hurt on his job, and my dad became severely depressed. So from the age of 5 years old until I was the age of 9, I lived with my father being very depressed. He didn't work because he was injured, and because he was injured, he was physically disabled and wasn't able to work. And so I can recall many days seeing my dad very sad. And it wasn't until I was in 4th grade that my dad went to rehab. And when my dad went to rehab, it was to combat his depression. And
did you understand what depression was at that time?
I didn't fully understand it at that time, but I did know that he was sad, he was withdrawn, he wasn't really around family functions as much, you know, things like that, because he was isolating himself because he wasn't happy. And so we knew that, even though we didn't fully understand all the characteristics associated with it, we knew that our dad wasn't what our dad needed to be for us. And so I remember being in 4th grade, and my dad went to rehab, and he was there for about 3 months. And when he was there, they discovered he was a diabetic, you know, just a lot of different things. But I'm so grateful to my mom for just having the will to not give up on her husband and making sure that she talked and she spoke with doctors, and so that he did enter rehab. After that point, when he came home, he was my dad. You know, the parks, that was my dad that took us to the park, teaching me to ride a bike, going outside to play basketball. All of those things was my dad. And I'm left-handed just like my dad. My fingers are shaped just like my dad. All growing up, I was told that I look just like my daddy. And so although I'm a mama's girl, my dad has a special place in my heart because I grew up with my daddy. Mm-hmm. And so when my parents separated and divorced, my dad went back to that depressed state. He did remarry, but I think sometimes, or I'm not going to say I think, I know, in order to remarry and to go to a different stage in life, you have to be healed and you have to be whole. Because if you're not healed and you're not whole and you're broken, you take those things into the next relationship.
Exactly.
And that person can't fully love you and you can't fully love that person because you're not healed and whole in the first place. And so I think sometimes men and women are so quick to not want to be alone. But being alone is when you find your strength. And I think that he needed to have that time alone more to really discover who he was and what he needed and what was just necessary to go on to the next chapter in life. But however he married, and when he married, that's another thing. When you marry someone, if they have children, those are your children.
Right.
Or they should be. You're not trying to replace a parent, but you have to embrace them if you truly love this person the way you say you love this person. And although we were adults and we wanted nothing from our dad but his love, we didn't get that.
So did you not get it? You said all you wanted was his love. So was it that you didn't get it from him or you didn't get it from your stepmother?
Never from her. To this day, I don't even like to attach that word stepmother to her name because she wasn't
your dad's wife.
she wasn't that to me.
Yeah.
And so when my dad suffered from depression again, and he was entered into a rehab, I was an adult. I had had my first child. He was in Louisiana. And so we were told, and so I drove to Louisiana to see him. And when I drove there, they clearly said only one person could go in the room at the time. And my dad wanted me to come in, but I allowed my little sister to go in first, and I was going to go last. And whenever she went in, I don't know if it upset him. I'm not sure what happened, but they brought her out, and I was never allowed to go in. And so Dad ended up getting out of rehab, and just kind of go through the years, time that something would happen with my dad, she would never call us. She would never let us know or anything. We would basically have to hear it through my great aunt, which was his aunt, that, oh, your dad's sick. She just never, and we were told that it was because of our mom. So every time that I was able to see my dad, it was pretty much even to find him, even to find where he lived. We heard someone say this address in this town, and we drove there to find him. My sister and I was like, we're going to find him. You're going to go to one door, I'm going to go to one door, but we're going to find Daddy. And that's literally what we did. He was so shocked, but so happy that we were there because he was never that same person that he was those other years when we grew up. And I know it was because he was broke.
We're going to hold right there, and we'll be right back.
Those in the know SIPS Consults. SIPS Consults is hiring. Confident, competent, and consistent. Starting as a consultant and a volunteer, SIPS has grown into a dynamic group of stellar sterile processing professionals, offering excellent benefits, 401k, and consultant in training program. We are hiring certified technicians, leads, supervisors, interim managers, educators, coordinators. Apply at recruiting@sipsconsults.com or dial 1-866-615-7977.
All right. Well, we're back. And Natalie, I wanted to elaborate on something that you said, or comment on something you said about when you marry someone and they have children, and my thing is, and I think it's what you said, like embrace their children. I too had a stepmother, and something you said just kind of hit my nerve. And what the similarities, what you said about your mother, her problems were that she knew your father loved your mother. Mm-hmm. And I can recall one time My father was not a responsible father at all. So I'm excited for you that you have those memories. I don't have those memories of my father. He was on paper only. But I remember he got us one summer and took us 90 miles away, which is where he and his wife lived. And I remember her combing my hair, and she kept just snatching my hair. And my hair was short and kinky, but she just kept snatching it. And I'm rocking back and forth like this. And I told her that I was getting sick to my stomach. I'm probably about 9 years old. And I remember vomiting. She took my face and smeared it in my vomit. And then she yanked my head back up and she kept combing it.
Wow.
Then she made us go wash the walls with her bathroom walls with our toothbrushes. And she said, you have your mama to thank for this. You know, and I say that to say, I don't understand. And anyone that marries someone that has children, how can you say you love them and not love their children?
That's right.
So, I think that was a valid point that you brought up, because those things, they stick with, legally, I'm not a stepmom today because I'm not still married to my daughter's dad, but even Christmas dinner, she was here. She was here with me, and we divorced when she was 14 and she's 42 today, because I vowed if I ever married anyone that had children, I'd have to love their children, because those children didn't even ask to be a part of that.
Right.
So I'm sorry I put those emotions in there, but I just think that's so critical that, if you marry someone with children, if you're even thinking about marrying someone with children, you gotta love those children.
Yep. Absolutely. And she's still around because of how you made her feel.
Yeah, and she says that the children. I'm not grandma, I'm Gigi, but yeah, but that's true, and I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
So let's talk about. So you finished high school. I mean, you finished college. I'm sorry, you finished college, and so what's next with the career path after you finish college to get to where you are today?
Before I get to that, I wanted to continue with the dark moment.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
And the dark moment, just to speed forward, is that when my dad went to the hospital, none of the children were notified. And probably 6 months before that, I had my son. And it was a big deal to me that my son got to meet my father. And so I didn't tell anybody I was coming, but I drove so that my dad could see my son. And that day, she was so adamant about us not seeing our dad. She had so many different excuses, but the point was he was in a rehabilitation. And she didn't want to tell us that. But fast forward about 6 months later, I was so determined to see my dad again, just to be able to see him. He was in the hospital and none of us knew it. And I had driven to Houston to be with some of his family. And that Wednesday, I was going to go see him. And on that Monday, my cousin that I was just with called me and she said, I need you to call Aunt Margaret. And I said, what's going on? She was like, I just need you to call her. And I said, just as confident in the voice that I'm using right now, I said, did my daddy die? And she said, yes. And I knew it. And that was my darkest day, not just because losing my dad, but the fact that none of his children were called to even be there with him. And for many years, I couldn't even talk about it without crying. But I had to find peace in knowing that he loved me, I loved him, he was a great father, and he was very proud of me.
I'm sure he was.
Just today, everything that I do, I think for many years, I was always concerned with, I wanted my parents to be proud. I wanted my grandfather to be proud. I wanted just to make everybody proud. But today it's about me, making me proud, being happy with who I am. Everything is about what I want to do because, people are going to always have opinions. They're always going to have um, things that they think you should be doing, but those things that they think you should be doing and what you are doing doesn't necessarily align with God's purpose for you to do and what you're truly passionate about. And so I'm really passionate about making a difference, but not just making a difference in my life today, but making a difference with the younger generation. And I am strong. When I came up with that, I'm a person of intent and purpose. And when I was coming up with the name for my business, it had to have a meaning behind it. And so I kept seeing this word strong. I had prayed for months for God to give me a word, and he gave me the word strong. And when I saw the word strong, I wanted to stand for something. So strong stands for I am striving to reach our next generation.
Oh, wow.
That's what it stands for. And so I'm about the youth, because if we can catch the youth at an early time, we can help establish a foundation with loving the skin that you're in. It don't matter what you look like. It don't matter what you come from, what your parents have, what they don't have, what negative experiences that you've had. It doesn't have to define you. Instead, it should motivate and inspire you to keep going, to prove that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. Leave everybody else behind and whatever else they have to say and what they think, and just keep going and live your life for you. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
And that's interesting. You said sometimes you have to shift gears as far as the people that you're with. Maybe at that point in time in your life that was fine, but sometimes you have to. So are there any memories or moments that a particular group or someone that was close to you at a particular time in your life that you had to transition in order to continue to grow?
Absolutely. People get caught up in doing things out of routine because it's comfortable. But sometimes you have to get uncomfortable to really do what you've been purposed to do.
That part.
And so, yes, I've had some people very close to me that have said, why you want to do something different? How are you going to do something different that nobody else has done? You're too old to be doing something different. You might as well just keep doing what you've been doing. That's what you know, and keep doing that. But I've never been a person to just sit still. You have to have a growth mindset. And if you want to grow, sometimes doing the things that are different, what's crazy to somebody else, it's fine. Because when God gives you a vision, they don't have to understand the vision. It's your vision. If he gives you the vision, he'll orchestrate the plan. He'll guide you. He'll bring the people. And the people that were in your life that may have been negative, trying to hold you back, God has a way of removing them so that you can be the person that he's called you to be. And you can do what he's called you to do and what you're truly passionate about. You're never too old to do something different. If you had a mindset to do it, you can do it.
So what advice do you have for someone that is trying to figure out how to maneuver to that next step because they do feel like they're stuck?
First of all, today with social media, the internet, and everything else, people want to look at what other people are doing and they want to model that. But you don't know their story. You don't know if that's genuine, because you can't always believe the hype and everything that you see. And so I think to really go after what you want, first of all, you got to sit down with yourself and discover what you're passionate about. And don't worry about who you have that's going to support you, because it's not the people that you know that's going to support you. When you're truly passionate about it, it's the vision that you have, it'll all come into play. God will bring you the people. He'll show you the way. But the main thing is to be humble and to be true and to be genuine and authentic. Because, again, real people, that's what they see. And that's what drives people to you. They see your heart. They see your passion behind it. And so even for me, when I had this idea, I didn't share anything with anybody for 3 months. I sat down, I wrote stuff, I planned stuff for myself, because when you share things with people, you have to be ready for everything that comes with it.
Right.
You have to be ready for the people that are going to be, oh, that's a good idea. You know, maybe because they want to copy some of the things that you do. You have to be ready for the people that's going to be like, well, how this going to work? Or how you going to do that? Because they're negative. And so I think the main thing is sitting down with yourself, coming up with your own plan. And then from there, baby steps, put it in a plan. Because if you don't start it, how will you know what it can become? My first event that I started was the Black History event. And we know since 2020, we've gotten more people to start to pay attention a little bit about the Black race and not understanding things. And now being a little bit more aware. When that happened with George Floyd, that really opened some people's eyes that don't look like us. And so I wanted to create an opportunity where I was able to showcase the Black culture in a positive light. And so that's when I came up with the Black History event, and this year's called Evening of Black Culture, where it was showcase the singing, the dancing, the praise dancing, the spoken word, all of those things that are positive in our culture that even before we gave it all these names, our ancestors was already doing this.
They were.
Just to be happy and bring joy and to celebrate with each other. And so I wanted to be able to do that. So I'm excited that I've been able to bring that to the communities, and, I'm preparing for the third year to be able to do that. So moral of the story is just do it.
Just do it. I love it.
Yeah.
So how can people find you?
Well,
Because I'm sure you have, there's opportunities where people can sponsor some of your events. People that, the youth, someone that may want to connect with you because they need some support. So yeah, how can someone find you?
well, they can find me on Instagram at Natalie_Clark07. I'm Natalie Clark on Facebook. I'm on TikTok, also on LinkedIn as well. And if you just want to connect on any of those platforms, you can. I host mentorships. I host mentorships for girls ages 11 to 17 out of Mansfield. I have girls in the surrounding areas that attend. And each month I focus on different concepts that we need. Nobody can tell us how to be us.
Right.
Nobody's walked in my shoes. Nobody walked in your shoes, just as being a Black woman. And so I talk about confidence. And I'm proud to say I've always been confident in who I am, because I've met so many women that are just like, it took me so many years to get to this level. And so the mentorship is important with me, with the young girls, because I want them to love the skin that they're in. I want them to be ready for college. I want them to know how to take care of themselves. I want them to be confident in walking into a room. You don't have to know anybody in a room. And, building relationships is important. Walk into a room, observe your surroundings. It goes back to the beginning of our conversation. I said, since I was a child, I was always observant. I observed the energy. I observed the people in the room. And so I tell the girls that you don't have to do stuff to fit in. It's okay to go in that room. There may be one person that you connect with. There may be no one. After that day, you may never see those people again. But it's okay if you're true to yourself. You're not forced to try to fit into a situation just because you are there. And so I have a spot. My mentorship is for 20 girls, because if you're truly trying to mentor and empower someone, I'm more about quality than quantity. And so if I just open it up to a whole bunch of girls, I have a bunch of girls in the program, but how impactful can I really be? Because I can't be as personal with them. And even with women, I do empowerment dinners and brunches for women. Once a month, I'm somewhere in Dallas hosting a private dinner. It's always a thing to be able to connect with different business owners, or not just women just wanting to come together. create a sisterhood, no competition, just to see how we can support each other. Because you've lived a life that I haven't. You've experienced things that I haven't. And so what I share may be a blessing to someone else. What you share may be a blessing to someone else.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much for being a part of Prevailing Through Pain. Your story was phenomenal. Natalie talked about loving the skin that you're in, confident. So start working on that. If you have any of those issues, start working on it because God made you uniquely you. He didn't make any mistakes. Thank you.